Hello, 180. Spring break is almost over and we are about to begin classes again. We are having to rush through one of the units of our course called literary criticism. And so I need to kind of give you a short lecture, video screencast lecture here about the assignments in this unit, the concept of this unit, since I'm not going to be able to do this in person with you guys. On our syllabus, you will notice that the remaining 4 weeks of class belong to two remaining units, literary criticism and literary careers and actions. So the original idea of these two units was to introduce you all as Literature 180 students and as potential or actual English majors, introduce you to the history, conventions of literary criticism, and then to spend the last 2 weeks of class looking at different ways that literary studies translates into different careers and cultural activities. And the idea of setting it up this way is that literary criticism is a function of our discipline of studying literature. But most of us are not going to end up using literary criticism, at least not academically, in our careers, because most of us won't have academic careers. So it's still relevant and important to learn a little bit about how literary criticism works, even though it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be an English major if you don't like literary criticism. And I just made a decision today. I know that originally we were going to have a longer essay for this part of the course called the critical context essay. And after going back and forth a bit, I decided to dramatically reduce or change that essay to a much shorter report. This was going to originally be about 6 pages and involved multiple sources, literary critical sources, synthesized into one big essay. I decided to break it up into 2 smaller essays, and actually just a short report and a new assignment called the thesis-seeking essay that I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about both of these new assignments at the end of this video, but I just felt like working remotely, and given the shrunk time we have, we lost a week, it wouldn't be the most important thing for you to write a more elaborate multi-source research essay, and it would be more important to just get the bare bones of looking at literary criticism, finding it in the library, reading a little bit of it as a practice, and summarizing it and reporting about it. So I will talk about those 2 assignments in a little bit. But let me talk to you quickly here about what literary criticism is. So let's make a distinction, first of all, between primary and secondary texts. So when we are launching into a research, a more disciplinary research of a piece of literature, we are going to look at both the primary text itself, the primary work of literature itself, and we are going to read and research secondary works of criticism and context around that primary text in order to get a fuller, bigger picture of the meaning of the text as it is placed within a larger context. Another term is literary criticism. So the term literary criticism can refer to any scholarly or popular writing about a work of literature, particularly evaluating it and interpreting it. That's where the criticism part comes in. To critique something is to pass a judgment or an interpretive judgment or an evaluative judgment about it. Is it good or bad? What does it mean? What is the author trying to say? And so on. There can be popular literary criticism, things like reviews, feature articles in magazines, and so forth. And there can be scholarly literary criticism, which are more formalized arguments, often based on in-depth research and studying secondary sources and contexts. So let me show you what one such piece of criticism looks like. Here is an article about Crime and Punishment. It is called The Religious Symbolism of Clothing in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment by Janet Tucker from University of Arkansas. And I found this article in our library database. So what you're looking at here is a electronic PDF version that was uploaded to our library database system of what is a print journal called the Slavic and East European Journal. And you can see this PDF version. There's a cover page that's been added from the database JSTOR, which has bundled within, it has a whole series of journals that it bundles together and the library subscribes to. And it posts all the sort of most important reference information about this article on a cover page before giving you a PDF of the page itself. Let me show you how I found an article like this. I just went to the George Fox Library website, and right in the first page they give you a big search box here, and this search box covers everything they have physically in the library and everything they have electronically in the cloud that they subscribe to. For academic articles, I can click on this tab, although I don't have to. I can get through to here too. And I'm just taking the most basic of search terms here, Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky. And I can then limit the results of my search to different parameters based on what I'm looking for. For your assignment, for example, you're going to have to find an example of peer-reviewed academic literary criticism. So what I'm seeing here is that this article is available in full text through four different databases, and I can click on any one of these, even though I might actually have to log in so they can verify I am a current Fox faculty or student to get access to this. So you have to do a lot of clicking, and sometimes, as this one is, the article is available right on the website. Sometimes I might have to download it. I can click on, it looks like this is a PDF. So it's always a new adventure when you click on these different databases. You're sort of learning every time. Often you're learning a new system as you go. But the idea is to move through the university database to the subscription database, finally to the journal and the PDF that of the article you're trying to read. So here's a PDF version of this article, and once again there's this cover page, and then the article begins as it would look if that journal has a print version. This one looks like it could be in print version, but it might just actually be set up as an electronic version. Either way, I have finally accessed the article. Now you'll see a couple interesting things about academic articles when you actually start looking at them. One is they often come with abstracts because academic research is moving very quickly through a lot of different materials to find very specific things and very specialized topics. There's a convention of including an abstract at the beginning of articles. This helps researchers and academics figure out if the article is going to be worth reading. It contains the very basic subjects and the questions and or arguments it's going to be making. And increasingly, you'll see these days keywords as well. So you have an idea of, is this going to be related to what I'm interested in, and so on. Another thing you'll notice about academic articles, literary criticism, is that it assumes the reader has a fairly thorough knowledge of the subjects that it is discussing or the literary works it's discussing. So as you research, for example, Crime and Punishment, you won't see any summaries of the novel. It will assume that you know the novel, that you've read the novel, and that even that you're basically familiar with some of the basic context of the novel, like who wrote it, the culture and time period, and so on. You also will notice that academic literary criticism is fairly carefully footnoted. And I already scrolled through another article. Here's another one. This article has, look at all these references, at least 20 references here. Each reference is meticulously noted in these in-text citations. These articles that I've been browsing through are peer-reviewed. So when you see peer-reviewed, it means that the articles have been vetted by experts, and it means that it both reaches a high standard of academic excellence and the conventional requirements for good research, and it should be pretty good quality. However, and I want to make sure that I emphasize this, academic literary criticism can be fairly specialized and nerdy. It can have a lot of terms in it that are fairly niche terms that have to do with other subfields of literary criticism. And many of these terms and types of subfields will not be familiar to undergraduate students yet. And so one thing that can happen when you do research on in academic literary journals is discouragement and perhaps despair that you don't understand or don't find very interesting many of the kinds of things that academic literary critics are writing about. My advice to you is not to worry when you see words that you don't understand yet, but to be on the lookout and to notice what you're seeing. One thing you'll probably notice is that a lot of article titles are a good hint that give away whether something is going to be the type of article that has a lot of special terminology that you aren't going to appreciate or understand, or is going to be of a more accessible type. There is literary criticism out there, academic criticism, that is accessible and uses less jargon, but you have to sift for it, and you have to work through searches a little bit more patiently and carefully to find them. The abstracts that I showed you, the abstracts can also be a good hint to make a decision. Okay, is this going to be way over my head in terms of specialized terminology, or is this going to be accessible and worth maybe reading for my project? I want you to, before you begin this project, go to the Lit 100 Studies in Literature LibGuide. Jenny Brooksfort, a research librarian here at the Fox Libraries, has very kindly agreed to she made a LibGuide, which is a special page within the library website, just for this project, just for this essay in our section of Literature 180. And so this is a additional resource that you should browse to sort of get ideas of where in the database system of the library that the library subscribes to, you should start looking as you begin this project. And with that, let me show you the new assignment, the changed or modified assignment that used to be a lot more elaborate assignment, critical context essay. I'm now calling it the Literary Criticism Report. And basically, I'm just asking you to find one article or a chapter of an ebook about crime and punishment that represents academic literary criticism. It has to be peer-reviewed, and you have to find it and read it. And once you read the article, write a 2-page report summarizing the argument or its most important findings. And at the end of that 2-page report, you should address the question, how do you think the basic points of this article, or the most important takeaways, changes the way you interpret crime and punishment? How do you think it's going to change the way you interpret this novel? That's it, a 2-page report and a very short presentation on what you found during one of our Zoom class meetings. Okay, and then I want to just show you the other new assignment. So I gave you guys, I reduced this critical context essay to something much simpler, and I added a new short essay called the thesis seeking essay. I will let you read this article assignment in detail on your own time, but I will just highlight a few things about it. I call it a thesis seeking essay because the idea is that you are not supposed to start out the essay already having discovered or decided what you are saying. This is one of my favorite essay assignments because it gives you space to explore and to wander and to meander your way through a question towards a possible answer. Now, what kind of question am I talking about, or what do I want you to write about? I really don't know. It's kind of up to you. I suggest something that you've been thinking about in relation to the class readings. Maybe you kept coming back, circling back to a couple common themes or interesting patterns that you were noticing, and those showed up again and again in your reading journal, for instance. Take some time. You can free write or brainstorm or mind map this, but the idea is to come up with a really good question and to let that question drive your writing. And the other thing I'll say about this assignment is that the purpose and the idea is for it to be exploratory and somewhat personal and real for you. So I say in here that you should put some of yourself in it, and you are supposed to tell a little bit about yourself or the real world that you live in some kind of short story or narrative or anecdotal form. In other words, this is not a traditional academic analysis of a text. Instead, it's an open human process of questioning, and you can use text. I want you to use a course text or one or more course texts, but the point is not to say something about a work of literature. It's supposed to ask a question about the real world, about life, about something that really matters to you, and to use the literature as a jumping off point and your own life as a jumping off point for that. As we wrap up, or we sort of look ahead at the last 4 weeks, we've got a reduced literary criticism report, the new thesis seeking essay, which is your last traditional essay, and then a final project, which I'll talk about in another short video in a few weeks. Okay, that is more than enough information for now. I'm going to sign off, but I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.